But first, last week on Outsiders, I mentioned the threat posed to your freedom, and more importantly, the terrifying threat posed to your children's and your grandchildren's future freedoms by a possible government-imposed digital ID. Here's digital ID opponent Whitney Webb warning that the WEF, the World Economic Forum, are desperate for public-private partnerships linked to digital IDs.
Essentially what this public-private partnership that the WEF is pushing for is for every person's access to the internet to be tied to a digital ID or a government-issued ID, but presumably a digital ID just because of where government-issued ID programs are all going essentially around the world.
Now, many skeptics warn that a digital ID is the end of democracy as we know it and an irreversible step into a dystopian future of firstly no cash, just a digital currency controlled by governments, potentially leading to a Chinese-style social credit system where government has the ability to control and restrict every single aspect of your lives, from where you go, how you travel, your healthcare, what you eat, control over your spending habits, a veto over your job prospects, and so on.
Well, I didn't expect our last digital ID video to spark that much debate. Thousands of comments. And some of you said, frankly, someone's talking about this. Others reckon I should take the tinfoil hat off and enjoy a snag at Bunnings. Fair enough. That's Australia. And if we can't argue respectfully over a meat pie, we've probably lost the plot. But after reading your comments, I realised something. The conversation isn't really about digital ID anymore. It's about something much bigger. It's about trust. Who do we trust with our identity? And who controls the rules tomorrow? And what happens when technology moves faster than the laws designed to protect us? So this isn't a repeat of our last video. I think of it as part 2. A deeper dive into the questions Australians and increasingly people around the world are beginning to ask. Because this story isn't just unfolding here, it's happening globally. So let's get into it. The world is building digital ID. If you think Australia is the only country exploring digital identity, think again. Nearly every developed nation is building some form of digital identity infrastructure. The European Union is introducing the European Digital ID Wallet, allowing citizens to store official documents digitally and access public and private services across member states. Singapore has operated SingPass for years, letting citizens access hundreds of government and commercial services through a single secure identity. Estonia, often called the world's most digitally advanced nation, has been using secure digital ID for over 2 decades, enabling everything from banking to voting online. Even the United Kingdom continues to expand its digital identity framework through certified providers. Notice something? Different countries, different governments, different political systems, they're all heading in a similar direction. That doesn't prove there's a global plan. It shows that digital identity is becoming part of how modern governments are thinking about public services. The question isn't whether digital ID is spreading, it clearly is. And the real question is, how far does it eventually go? Australians have heard this before. It's completely voluntary. It just makes things easier. Sometimes that's exactly what happens. And other times, technology evolves. Remember QR code chickens during COVID? Many Australians accepted them because there was a clear public health reason at the time. Most disappeared afterwards. Some digital systems stayed. Some didn't. History teaches us something important. Technology really stands still. It grows, and sometimes for good reasons, sometimes because new opportunities appear. Privacy experts often refer this as function creep. A system designed for one purpose slowly gains another, then another, then another. Not because someone planned it from day one, because once the infrastructure exists, using it somewhere else becomes easier. That's not fair. That's happening repeatedly with technology. Years ago, people used to say cash is king. I think they still are in some of my circles. But today, data might be wearing the crown. Now, let's think about that. Streaming services know what you binge watch. Supermarkets know what you buy. Your smartwatch probably knows you've skipped leg day. Again, Google knows what you search. Your phone knows where you've been. Artificial intelligence is making that data even more valuable because it can identify patterns humans simply can't see. The Economic World Forum, the OECD, and major technology researchers have all discussed how trusted digital identity can become functional infrastructure for the digital economy. Again, that isn't automatically sinister. Efficient economies require trust identities, but every valuable resource raises an important question. Who controls it? Here's something we're thinking about. Supporters of digital ID make a compelling argument. Instead of every business storing copies of your passport, a secure identity provider verifies who you are. Fewer copies floating around, there's opportunities for data breaches. Well, that kind of makes sense. But critics ask the opposite question. What happens if one highly trusted identity provider becomes compromised? We've already seen major cyber attacks against governments, hospitals, banks, telecommunication companies around the world, and including here in Australia. No serious cybersecurity expert says any digital system is impossible to hack. The Australian Cybersecurity Centre regularly reminds Australians that cyber threats continue to evolve every year. So perhaps the debate isn't, can digital ID be hacked? How do we build systems resilience enough when, if not, someone eventually tries? Here's the part we barely touched on last time, artificial intelligence. Most conversations treat AI, digital ID, biometrics, digital payments as separate technologies, but increasingly they're beginning to interact. AI helps verify identities, detection fraud, spot unusual behavior, improve cybersecurity. Those are all positive applications. But AI also raises new questions. How much decision making should algorithms have? If an automated system flags an identity issue, who checks whether the computer got it wrong? Can you appeal? How quickly? Who's accountable? Technology isn't just changing faster, it's becoming smarter. That means governance has to become smarter too. One thing stood out from the comments in our last video. People from every political background were asking similar questions. Conservative, progressive, libertarian, Labour, Liberal, Greens, One Nation. Didn't matter because privacy isn't really a left issue or a right issue. It's a human issue. Throughout history, every generation has to decide where to balance security, convenience, innovation, and individual freedom. That's really a perfect answer, which is exactly why these conversations matter. Here's a thought experiment. Imagine we're sitting here in 2040. Your digital ID works brilliantly. Everything's faster, healthcare, banking, government services, travel, education, it's all seamless. Would you be happy? Most people probably would. Now, let's imagine another scenario. The technology stayed the same, but the rules changed. Different government, different legislation, different priorities. Would you still feel exactly the same? Because technology itself isn't neutral, the real question is, who writes tomorrow's rules? This has never been about telling you what to think. It's been about encouraging Australians to ask better questions. Digital ID might generally make life easier. It might reduce fraud, protect against identity theft, and modernise government services. Those are benefits. It also raises legitimate questions about governance, privacy, security, and accountability. Those questions deserve thoughtful answers, not ridicule, because history doesn't usually change overnight. It changes one small decision at a time, one convenience at a time, one new technology, one law, one amendment, until one day we wake up and wonder how everything became so different. Maybe digital ID becomes one of Australia's greatest technology success stories. Maybe future generations will wonder why anyone was worried. Or maybe history will remind us that asking difficult questions before change happens is always wiser than asking them afterwards. So here's the question I want to leave you with. If a technology promises greater convenience today, but has this potential to reshape society tomorrow, at what point should citizens stop simply accepting it and start helping shape the rules that govern it? Because democracies don't become stronger when people stop asking questions, they become stronger when people ask better ones. If you enjoyed this follow-up video, hit like, subscribe, and share with a mate. Until then, stay curious, stay informed, and always don't believe everything you hear on the internet, including me. Check the sources. And until we see you next time, cheers, legends.